Zoro and his final swords. I'll be explaining about two of the most famous swords in Japan's history and why it will be Zoro's final swords. But what made me decide to create this video was because one of the most exciting moments in One Piece was when Zoro first got his new swords in Logue Town. I can't remember how many times I rewatched that part over and over again, and afterwards you see Zoro holding his swords like a badass. We all believe that Zoro will get his new swords in the near future, and through research we can predict what swords he should get. But as I mentioned in one of my first videos, I really believe that Zoro will leave Shui Shui behind in Wano Kuni as a resting place for the sword and final goodbye to Ryuma. That sword is a national treasure to Wano, and even though Zoro can be the new hero Wano, it will not suit the Mugiwara pirates. Before I explain about the two swords, I will talk about a video made by my friend Marco, who was collaborating with One Piece Japanese theorists, and it is my favorite sword theory of the year, so do check it out. But briefly, I will explain about it. The three swords that Zoro has at the moment has a similar name to real-life existing blade, and the users of these swords are from the Sinsengumi. The Sinsengumi was a special police force organized by the military government during Japan's Bakumatsu period in 1864. Three members were highlighted by Marco's video were Isami Konda, Soji Okita, Hijikata Toshizo. Commander Isami Konda owned the Gitatsu, which is also owned by Zoro, the Sandai Ketsutsu. Zoro picked the sword from a barrel of cheap katanas in a shop at Logue Town after sensing its quality. Captain Shoji Okita owned the Kiku Ichimochi and is also owned by Zoro, the Wado Ichimochi. The Wado Ichimochi is a sword of great personal importance to Zoro. Upon Kuna's death, Zoro asked for it from her father. Even though the final member could be any of the large number of the Shinsengumi, Marco's video explained it to be the sword of Vice Commander Hijikata Toshizo. Not only he had the strongest sword, but he had a unique epithet, and that was the only Vice Commander. This links so well with the Kaido arc because, as you've seen from my previous video, Kaido is based off the story Peach Boy. Oh, and the name of his sword is called Izumi no Kami Kanisada. What a fitting sword to replace the Shui Shui. So having a stronger sword would replace Shui Shui well. But would there be any other swords being replaced? The Kanisada won't be replaced due to being a new sword, and the Wado Ichimochi is a sword that Zoro will always keep until he is the strongest swordsman in the world. So this leaves us with the Sandai Ketsutsu. Being the lowest grade of the three swords, Sandai Ketsutsu is the weakest of all the Ketsutsu swords. Its name also indicates it was the last of the three to be made. Replacing the Sandai Ketsutsu sword would be most suited, and the best replacement would be the Shodai Ketsutsu. I always believe that one of the Gorosei has that sword, which you can see here. But if you look carefully, the sword is really massive. It will not suit Zoro's type of fighting. Mihawk's Yoru is also the same class, but I do hope it's just a coincidence that these swords are so long. But if the Shodai Ketsutsu won't replace Zoro's Sandai Ketsutsu, then what? In true Flying Panda style, I will tell you about the two of the most famous swords in Japan's history and the most famous swordsmith, the Masamune and the Muramasa. The Masamune is widely recognized as Japan's greatest swordsmith. He created swords and daggers. The swords of Masamune have a reputation for a superior beauty and quality. Swords created by Masamune often are referred to with the smith's name, often with a name for the individual sword as well. The Honjo Masamune, a symbol of the Tokugawa shogunate and passed down from shogun to shogun, is perhaps the most known Masamune sword. If you're a fan of games like myself, this sword also appeared in League of Legends, in Smite, in the RPG Golden Sun: The Lost Age. In Chrono Trigger, one of the characters named Frog wield a sword called Masamune after encountering a character named Masa and a character named Moon. Masamune also makes appearances in numerous Japanese games, TV shows, mangas, and so on. Now on to Muramasa. In my previous video about Zoro's eye, I briefly mentioned about the sword, so do check it out first. Muramasa Sango was a famous swordsmith who founded the Muramasa school and lived during Muromachi period in Japan. Was a most skillful smith but a violent and ill-balanced mind, verging of madness, that was supposed to have passed into his blades. They were popularly believed to hunger for blood and to impel warriors to commit murder or suicide. Muramasa blades were recorded to be in the hands of famous generals will be very fitting when Zoro will face off to fight the Shogun of Wano Kuni. It has also been told that once drawn, a Muramasa blade has to be drawn blood before it can be returned to its scabbard, even to the point of forcing its wielder to wound himself or commit suicide. Thus it is thought of as a demon-cursed blade that creates bloodlust in those who wield it. This sword will be very fitting for Zoro as his final sword, and if you're a gamer like myself, Muramasa makes appearances, and most of them all involve having a cursed demon inside them. This includes games from Final Fantasy, Castlevania, and World of Warcraft as well. A legend tells of a test where Muramasa challenges Masamune to see who could make a final sword. They both worked tirelessly, and eventually when both swords were finished, they decided to test the results. In yet another story, Muramasa and Masamune were summoned to make swords for the Shogun or the Emperor, and the finished swords were held in a waterfall. The results is the same as the other stories, and Masamune's swords are deemed holy swords. In one version of the story, Muramasa is killed for creating evil swords. While all known legends of the two ever having met are historically impossible, both smiths are widely regarded as symbols for their respective eras. A cursed sword, a holy sword. Would Zoro get either or get both? Thanks for watching the video. Leave a comment down below on what you thought. Do check out Marco's version as well because it is a brilliant story as well. And if you haven't seen it already, check out my PPA dance with my sisters that I've done for fun.